So moving anti-clockwise, right to left from the globe. And now we are moving to the sort of Western Asia, Middle East sort of region. And we're going to first look at some Iranian, again, Iranian English language news outlets, as well as some Arabic news outlets and one Turkish news outlet. I knew some other major Turkish outlets, but I didn't have time to do much research on the Turkey side, so that will be a bit lighter. Anyways, on the Iranian side, first I looked at Press TV, which is the official Iranian media, state-sponsored media for English language. And it had a lot of, obviously, focus on the strengths of Iran's military, a lot of positive stuff about Iran's foreign policy and Iran's activities regarding improving relations and all that. But overall, Press TV is a bit more coming from a place of a strength and how Iran should assert itself, and Iran is a strong and all that. Although they did have surprising stuff, for example, Bolsonaro accused of crimes against humanity at ICC, which ICC has had its own problems with Iran. I found surprising. Mostly focused on Iran's positive developments. They had a lot of stuff on, whenever they could, as you can see here, for example, UK police officers accused of sexual misconduct. So they did cover this type of tidbits from US and UK and that type of thing whenever they could, the negative stuff. But their international coverage was very similar to Al Jazeera or, that type of thing, RT, sort of calling for international calm and collaboration and that type of thing, but from an assertive, I would say, point of view. And for example, they, as you can see, they reflected, and they have articles from Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, and they take a harsher stance, for example, against not harsher stance, they push Taliban a bit more, like they're more negative on Taliban than some other publications. Like they say Taliban should, for example, act more swiftly to protect the Shias and that type of thing. So that was quite interesting.
Very nice, yeah.
And for example, this article, Iranian Army Ground Forces Chief celebrates largest chopper fleet in the region, self-sufficiency in drones and that type of thing. This is, by the way, for example, this article is clearly related to the fact that Iran's tensions with Azerbaijan recently escalated. So both countries had military drills in the Caspian Sea, in the air and all that. So, these are all related, bro. You also have Tehran Times. Tehran Times, as you can see, I like that article via Azerbaijan. Tehran Times seems a bit more political, economically focused, more articles about Iran's economy and that type of thing. But they also more sort of deeper analysis and that type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and their branding looks just like The Economist or even The Times. And so it's funny. Yeah, it goes with that.
Yeah, exactly. These Tehran Times kind of like Press TV. I forgot to mention that wholly, pretty much, even more than Press TV is internationally focused. And, as you can see, why Azerbaijan needs to distance itself from Israel. For example, this article is more conciliatory in tone compared to some of because Press TV doesn't have that many, I didn't read that many opinion and stuff. They mostly put out the words of the commanders or that thing. So, that naturally is harsher. Iranian Swiss parliament speakers hold talks. Tehran says won't tolerate presence of Zionist forces near border. So, everything is international pretty much.
Yeah, probably the most international outlet. But then again, I'm kind of thinking of the outlets we've gone over so far. But okay, no, we're on Tehran Times now. Okay, I was thinking it's still Press TV. Okay, never mind. But I mean, Press TV targets who? Press TV doesn't target Iranians, right? It targets people looking for
Exactly.
international news around the world. So I mean, it has that
Yeah.
kind of perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean,
And that kind of
I would
image and
say Press
messaging it wants
TV,
to put out about
Engl
Iran.
English-speaking Muslims would be the main sort of audience of Press
Yeah.
TV. And from what I understand, Iran has a massive media operation in Spanish, like Press TV, or a Spanish-speaking states. I don't know, but
Yeah.
yeah. So,
I was
South America is a big target.
I was gonna
Oh,
say
and
like
Arabic.
within yeah. Okay. Well, I was
Sorry.
gonna say on top of that, probably among all kinds of leftist circles, international leftist circles, whether it's in the US, I can see it in UK, Europe, and South America for sure. Because I mean, they're pretty big, right? I
I
mean,
don't
they put
know.
out
Do
quite a bit
you
of
think
content.
Press TV is that famous?
Yeah, no, I know it's not that famous. I mean, it's nowhere near RT,
I've
of
never
course,
seen
or something like that. But
Al Jazeera.
yeah, no, nowhere near as close as that. Yeah.
But yeah, but for again highlighting the difference between, for example, Tehran Times and Press TV. Kundu, this is from Iranian Chief of General Staff of Iran's Armed Forces. Kunduz Kram highlights the need for security in Islamic State, Iranian military chief. So you see, they're highlighting a more conciliatory message compared to the Press TV. And yeah, they have a more, they seem to be more targeting international audience compared to Press TV at least. But they're both, targeting definitely international audience for sure. So yeah, that was, So these were Iranian, what do you call them, funded backed channel. Mayadin, I don't know, is a Lebanese, an Arabic language channel. I couldn't find an English website for them. Maybe they have it, but they are also funded by Iranian-backed groups or groups that are sympathetic to the Iran and Hezbollah and all that. And they had I just went through their Twitter, and they had interesting stuff. Although
did
I
Max
should have
Blumenthal and Ben Norton write this article? Who are the authors
yes,
of this?
exactly, the Pandora Papers, Why No
It's
Americans,
true though.
and a lot of stuff about Trump, and just a lot of negative stuff about US and all that. But I didn't look into their websites, so I don't know if that's true. Al Mayadin is usually good for breaking news in Lebanon, though, because they have really good sources there. So hopefully in future we'll have more from it. Now, moving on to Arabic funded English speaking news outlets. I looked at Al Jazeera news channel. We I think discussed a lot before. I found that they were interesting, one of the few channels, news outlets that covered the Chinese floods and the deluge that has been, apparently, affected China. Nobody, even Chinese. Sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry. Please finish. I just want to get your attention and then mention something.
No, it's just, I didn't see it get coverage in Chinese, China Daily, or even India and that Indian or Pakistani news outlet. So surprised me a bit.
Yeah, and I guess this is also kind of the same. I mean, we talked about all these outlets not having an international perspective, and even those that didn't have, I think, one story on an African nation. But I bet you if you go on Al Jazeera's homepage, there'll be a few stories on Sudan, Somalia, Ethiopia, at least, maybe a Nigeria story, a DRC story, I would assume, African Union right here.
I was gonna, I was gonna say that just in general trend, both in Iran, in Iranian funded news outlets, that major focus was Iran's strength and Iran's military, as well as the ongoing for the new government's foreign policy, basically, and the tensions with Azerbaijan, especially. In the Arabic news outlets, the major focus was actually more so Iran had some of that too, more so on Iraqi elections and Lebanese ongoing economic situation. So because it's for a lot of people, the Lebanon issue is just the energy issue right now that's come to focus. But for if you just follow it every day, it's been going on for on and on and on.
Yeah.
And today we had the results announced for the Iraqi elections, by the way, which turnout apparently was below 40%, very low turnout. And the results came out, and it seems Muqtada Sadr, I don't know if you know him, he was the leader of Mehdi's army, and his father was a guy who played a huge role in Iran's Iranian revolution, actually got killed by Gaddafi. I believe both his father and his uncle got killed by Saddam, I think. It's in a very brutal, by the way, like fashion. He's now a Shia leader. So I'm just going to show a picture of him because I couldn't find this guy, Muqtada Sadr. He's leading the grouping. It's not even a party that won the most seats, it seems, in the Iraqi parliament. And this guy here is the leader of the pro-Iranian groups. I mean, Iran calls these anti-terrorist groups alliance. So, whoever you want to believe. So they came out and they said they reject the results for now, and they think there are irregularities, and they're gonna appeal and all that. But Muqtada Sadr, the leader of the former leader of Mehdi's army, and he's going for a very nationalistic vibe. He seems to be the winner, but that was the major news thing. Then you had Lebanon, the ongoing energy crisis, the situation with the blast and the ongoing legal problems. And the thing you said, interestingly, I didn't know there was a whole like France Africa conference or something, or a summit or something, which only pretty much got covered by Al Jazeera. And I found out about it through Al Jazeera, and maybe Guardian had something, or
I mean, even now I don't see too many. I saw another, I think maybe story something, an
there was a big
but
one.
yeah,
I thought it was from Al Jazeera. Yeah, this is one which is cornered by it's related a lot to do with the whole Algerian, Morocco, and France situation, and increased tensions there because of Macron's recent comments and change of policy in Algeria and change in books and stuff. But yeah, you're right. Africa was very much, it seemed, Al Jazeera's domain. And we'll get to it. And other, I would say, Al Jazeera and French, French-backed English-speaking news outlets. God damn, I have to come up with an acronym for that. But yeah. So, but yeah, I wanted to highlight that, Al Jazeera covered the floods. Now let's move to Arabiya, which I think is funded mostly by the Saudi government. They were very nice UI and UX, by the way.
I was gonna say, is this your fault or or is this how their website is?
Why their website is so good? I love it. It's so minimal, and anyway, compared to other ones. Well, anyways,
are you sure it was updated today or this week, or are we looking at news from a decade ago?
What?
I'm joking. Just their page. I can't tell. I can't tell. I don't recognize any of the stories. Okay, Lebanon crisis. Okay, we're in the right year at least.
Yeah. No. All right. Yeah. Their whole thing seems to be that they focus on sort of again the most positive developments in the Arab world, especially Saudi, Bahrain, Kuwait, UAE, and they had stuff about cleric Sadr. Cleric, I like that, by the way. That just came in. I hadn't read this. Cleric Sadr wins Iraq vote. Former PM Maliki close behind. So, by the way, the former Prime Minister Maliki's grouping came second after Sadr, and I think the third are the pro-Iranians. But yeah, mostly you see stuff like, the Arab youth must be heard. first Jewish wedding held in Bahrain in more than half a century. Positive, feel-good stories about developments in the Persian Gulf region, that type of thing. But they do have, again, Lebanon is something that was, in the region was Lebanon and Iraqi elections was something that was not, even if you're focusing on more positive stories like this one or Press TV, you have to discuss those as well. Again, but you see Expo 2020 Dubai, that type of thing. So mostly this was a Saudi Arabia, UAE foil attempt to smuggle 1.5. What is that?
1.5 million amphetamine pills. Wow.
What is the N for?
I don't know. They wrote it in a weird way, but I mean.
Yeah, anyways. So, it's that type of thing. I love that how Iran sanctions is one of their trending topics, as you can see here, though.
Along with terrorism, Afghanistan and Lebanon.
Lebanon is, as always, top there. So that was Al Arabiya, and moving on to Middle East Monitor is a bit more. They are very good at presentation, very good UI, UX, all that, and very much like Tehran Times. They're far more adept at covering and at presenting their stuff. So they had some stuff on the French and Algerian ongoing French and like North African French tensions, you could argue. So that was the issue covered by them. Again, the Iraqi elections was a big issue they covered. They had a lot of stories I noticed, and I picked one. They had a lot of positive stories about Turkey in their stuff, and I wonder, I'm not sure if Middle East Monitor is funded by which government, but I think it might be funded by a Qatari government. So I thought maybe that's the reason, but I'm not sure. They may be funded by UAE. I might be wrong there.
But would that make
they
them?
Also had,
but that would make them sympathetic to Turkey.
I think so. Qatar has great relations with Pakistan, with Turkey. Yes, I believe Turkish troops are also some Turkish troops.
Yeah, they're based in the UK, but I don't know where their funding comes from. But sorry, continue.
All right, they had some they had some stuff about Iran's ongoing tensions with Azerbaijan in an indirect way, I would say, and so I don't know. It was just the thing I noticed there, so I might be wrong. So, for example, this article, Azerbaijan says non-aligned movement contributes toward peace. Obviously, President Aliyev said that, or he said it. Yeah, he said it for sure. So, they are very much focusing on positive stuff regarding Qatar, Turkey, Islamic world, but not so much in the. If you could say that Al Arabiya is focused on the Persian Gulf region, they are more focused on North Africa, Turkish world, that type of thing. I would say Middle East Monitor. Although they have more content than Al Arabiya for sure, and Al Mayadin and all that, I would say. Now, going anything else? Oh, in terms of international news,
try not to move the thing too much.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
All right. In terms of international news, I just want to say there wasn't much worth talking about that we haven't talked already. But the Arabic English-speaking news outlets, they were all pretty much focusing on increased positive talks between Iran and Saudi Arabia, for example, increased for example, Al Jazeera, North Korea says U.S. South Korea threatened peace with arms buildup. So it seemed their shtick was similar to European and sort of British shtick, is sort of to call for calm everywhere and just focus on positive peace development and all that. So that seemed to be the international trend of theirs. And Yep. Now going to Turkey, the last country and last news outlets we're going to look at is TRT. Again, TRT very internationally focused.
Yeah.
I found them interesting that they had a lot of stuff on China, on India, on Pakistan, not so much on obviously uh, Turkey itself. And interestingly, they were yeah, on the whole like Asia region. I think they were very good. Like
No,
as you can
yeah.
see, this civilian killings open old wounds of Hindu migrants in Kashmir. So they had like on their main page they had stuff on smaller countries as well. They had some stuff about the French North African tensions and all that, and obviously they also highlighted Turkish positive developments. And for example, Turkey's Erdogan urges global cooperation on climate crisis. So you see again the positive aspects of in a very liberal sense, in a very center liberal sense, focusing on positive aspects of the country's development and all that. But but I didn't do a amazingly deep dive on them.
No, I mean,
So yeah.
TRT across all platforms, they produce some pretty decent content. I mean, of course, if you start watching it and watching it, you'll see all the biases. But on YouTube, they make very interesting and good videos with good graphics. On TV, they cover a whole host of issues, including like smaller humanitarian stuff in different African nations and everywhere. And on their website too, I guess.
I never, but to be honest, I've never seen their. I've only seen like 3 or 4 maybe segments out of their whole thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's much better than CNN, and yeah. And I mean, there's one outlet, one international outlet that started to get on my nerves recently, but I haven't said anything. I'm waiting. I think they're gonna come up.
All right,
And I've
cool. Yeah,
realized
yeah.
something
Hopefully.
about them. I'll see if you think the same or not.
Great. All
Yeah.
right, cool. So yeah, but yeah, that was the last outlet I had for the greater Middle East or the end of West Asia region. Okay, so now moving on to from east to west, now going to the European countries and their news outlets, mainland Europe mostly. Sadly, I couldn't find good Italian and Spanish English speaking news outlets that I knew of. Again, if anybody has any recommendations, but I looked at mainly France 24 and DW, and then we briefly discussed the Russian news outlets as well, RT and Sputnik, but the main ones were these ones. So I didn't even want to, like, I should have done a whole separate thing for a Russian speaking word, but I sort of included it as a sort of, it's part of Europe, technically speaking. So starting with, and by the way, I have a feeling from our previous segments that one of the news channels that you have a problem with is France 24
No,
DW. I
yeah.
have a problem. I have a hunch, but I don't know.
Yep,
Don't tell
you're
me if
right.
I'm right. Okay, good. But don't tell me which one it is. Yeah.
Okay.
But I want to just the general. Sorry, again, I have very slippery fingers and I'm losing my notes constantly.
No worries.
One thing I noticed was that first of all, both the website and the articles are more domestically focused the issues than the YouTube channel for sure, in my view. And I like I found out basically I like their YouTube channels more because they have more debates and discussions there, and this is more just news and opinion pieces, so it's not as fun. But yeah, so starting with France 24, France 24 had a lot of stuff about Macron pushing nuclear and hydrogen energy, and a lot of stuff about the IMF head who's been embroiled in a controversy recently. as you can read here, IMF reaffirms full confidence in head. And IMF is an organization that is very Frenchly. From what I understand, the heads of they rotate between, like, the head of IMF or World Bank. One of them had to be French, or IMF was always French or French speaking. And I think it's one of the requirements of working in the IMF to speak French. So a lot of focus on international institutions, a lot of focus, a negative focus on UK's development. So you could clearly see a lot of Brexit is still being discussed here.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's even probably like, this is not about French people. I think this is about English speakers who can probably speak French, and they, I would assume, come from urban centers that are very pro EU. So, like, you can feel that the whole thing has a very pro EU vibe. On the international thing, again, a trend seems to be, like, across all regions, maybe not so much in the US, that's pretty much called for calm and focus on the positive developments, and everybody calling for calms and all that. And obviously the COVID stuff gets coverage, and the treatments and all that. And some, not some, sorry, as I mentioned, institutions get a lot of coverage on France 24. So I would say more focus on World Bank, IMF, that thing, compared to others, and that thing. And some stuff about the, obviously, North Africa, more so than others, I would say, more so than
that makes complete
DW
sense.
or
yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know, which do you have any comments on
No, not here. Yeah, no, keep on going.
France 24. So yeah, that was one article, for example, that I found that France 24 like had its as its headline on their website for a couple of hours at least. They also, had stuff about Iraq and the elections, their international stuff, North Korea.
Very conventional stories here to North Korea.
Yeah, the peace ones. Now, moving on to DW, I mean, this is going to contradict what I'm just going to say, what I had in my notes. But I found DW to be like their headline back then. I mean, maybe it was because there was just the election in Berlin with a lot of questionable and irregular things happening in it. So it seemed to me to be during the last few days a slightly more domestically focused and European focused than France 24. But now they have as a headline, as you see, Afghanistan, Taliban meet with EU, like the most international story ever. Like you have everywhere there. So, and then
with no Germans in sight.
Yeah, like, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it's been a couple of days of research. Don't take it too seriously. India, several states hit, but we had nothing on India this morning. Anyway, but yeah. But
damn, the energy crisis hitting everywhere, India.
Yeah, the energy crisis was a common theme in all over the world, less so in the US, as I mentioned. A lot of stuff about, obviously, German elections and German future of German-US relations, future of German-UK relations under the coalition government. And, a lot of stuff that might be of interest of only German voters. Oh, sorry, a lot of stuff about the Czech elections and the ongoing conflicts within the EU with the Polish, the ongoing conflict between the Brussels and Warsaw over the Polish constitutional ruling, and the Czech elections. The Czech elections is a really funny one. I don't know if you've heard, but the guy Andrej Babiš, who we covered this very briefly in the Pandora paper stuff, he lost that election.
He lost.
Well, he didn't lose. He didn't win it. His party is still the largest, but only by 1 seat. So, but I think their majority was cut in half or something.
Okay.
So, yeah, and then I think he not only lost the election, and this is my personal analysis, this is not news or anything. I think he may have also killed his biggest ally, the president, who was saying that that was his biggest ally, and who was saying that only the leader of the largest party has the mandate to form a government, had a heart attack, basically, and was hospitalized. right after the election. So I think it may have killed him too. And then, so yeah, that's been a big, nobody knows what's going on there. So but I had this article saved from earlier when they did focus on domestic issues more. So they had a lot of stuff about the elections in Berlin, and there was, because they had a number of elections in Berlin. Some of them were referendums. German system, it seems somewhat similar to American system in terms of, because it's federal and you have a lot of stuff that you locally vote on, sort of in referendum style. So that was
in that sense, I guess.
Fascinating and interesting. I don't know if you have any comments or anything.
No, I mean, the outlet I was going to hate on is DW, but specifically the TV channel, because, okay, if you think that the American press or Americans are obsessed with Russia, you have to see DW. I mean, they're obsessed. However, I guess to their defense, at least in their case, Russia is their neighbor, and they occupied half their country for a while. And of course, the elephant in the room nowadays, which is really the whole energy thing. And yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about this more later, but now really, really thinking more that, this is like a perfect moment for Russia. They're really holding like Germany and Europe by its balls, so to speak. And it just happens to be Russia has its energy conference this week. Just such a funny timing. It's just an event where they promote all kinds of Russian energy products. But yeah,
I think having them by the balls metaphor is
a bit too strong.
Huge oversimplification, because when you are as poor as cash, not poor necessarily, as cash poor or as liquid poor as countries like Russia are, it's hard to use your leverage. I think now the energy issue has more to do with, but they have their own domestic demand has gone up, Asian demand has gone up. So I don't think they are trying to, it's just they can't supply anymore. And and from my experience in international business, whenever Europeans are offering you accept it, because they pay usually cash and fast. And in Asian countries, that's a far harder thing. So I would imagine Russian businessmen would be glad to supply more. It's just not
100%.
I believe the head of Gazprom said.
100%. I'm not saying that they don't want to give it to them. It's just that the Europeans can do all their, we don't want to get energy from Russia. We don't want to do this and that. But they have no choice, and they're probably going to ask to increase their energy intake from Russia, especially gas, and rely on it even more and more, I would assume, in the years and decades to come.
If nuclear energy, France has been pushing for, France I think gets more than 50% of its for UK has its own, Norway has its own gas things that they can develop, Turkey can come in, Iran, there were talks of Iran.
Come on, no. I think all of these, it's so much more practical than getting it. So much more practical just getting it from the Russians. I mean, they're not going to get it from Iran.
Of course, there is already.
And the whole nuclear thing, France has been doing nuclear for a long time, so they're the only ones who are kind of positioned as well. I mean, let's say if Germany wants to increase their source of nuclear, it's like a 5 to 10, 15 years project at the very least by the time you build more nuclear plants and all that.
No, you said there are no options. I'm just saying, like, you could degrow, like not growing your economy. Like, there are always options.
Yeah, of course,
whether they're practical. Yeah, I mean, considering that Nord Stream 2 took pretty much 15 years or something to get built and all that, and it's still like the last 2 kilometers.
But that's political reasons, right?
Goddamn. Yeah, sure, exactly. So yeah, I mean, getting a gas from Turkey and Iran is not going to be political. So
True. No, I thought you were talking about the nuclear power plant thing, because nuclear power plant, even if you try your best and there's nothing in the way, I would assume it takes a few years to get it going at the very, very least. I think I'm being kind here.
I really don't know enough about the nuclear energy power plant systems. But I do know that France gets, I think, more than 50% of its energy. So it
Yeah.
is a viable option, it seems.
No,
More
but
viable than wind and solar, it seems.
I mean, this is not a new debate or discussion, really. That's like the route France has chosen for a long time. Nuclear has a few problems. As you open the new things, I'll just mention it. I mean, nuclear power plants, one reason why they never, I think, took off in the way that some might want to, they're extremely expensive, and maintaining can be a bit hard. And every now and then you
Yeah.
have to pretty much bury radioactive waste. Exactly. Which is,
And
which maybe there are
no,
ways around it, but yeah, those are really the things. And it's expensive, like I mentioned, really expensive apparently
yes,
to
and
build. Yeah.
frankly, I think, I genuinely, I'm not a fan, and it seems like a highly risky sort of, and like nuclear research seems fine, but I just, as a form of energy, to me, it's always seemed like there seems
I
like
mean,
easier ways to do this. I
yeah,
don't know.
it has no emissions, it has that going for itself, and technically anyone can do it. I mean, sure, you have to go take the uranium from East or West Africa, probably like the French are. But once you brought back the uranium, then you can go
Yeah,
about
look.
it.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, it seems like, I don't know. It seems like a good investment in gas, or maybe solar. Maybe I don't know. Yeah. Anyways,
Yeah.
moving on to a very. Let's take a pause because I have to change my headphones. Sorry for this technical difficulty. So apologies for that. As usual, my headphones ran out of batteries. So also we looked at I looked at two English language Russian funded news outlets. One was a Sputnik, which is a smaller one, but they do have some breaking news from within Russia or from Middle East. They have good sources. During Syrian war, they had a lot of good sources and stuff. So that was interesting. And I looked at RT, a very brief look at both. What I found very interesting was that it seemed like you're literally looking at a British news outlet, because they had probably more British news than anywhere else. Like a lot of the stuff, I mean, obviously pretty much all of them negative, but a lot of the stuff about COVID, a lot of the stuff about Brexit, and as you see, like for example, today their major headline was the COVID handling by UK government. So that was interesting. Although I would say RT was a slightly more international than British than a Sputnik was. As you can see, for example, a lot of stuff about US and NATO allies deliberately trying to heat up crisis in Afghanistan after chaotic exit. So as you see, again, trend, we saw a lot of news outlets similar to them. Everybody's trying to calm everything down. Everybody's accusing each other of heating up things and focusing on saying that we are trying to calm things down. You had some stuff about East Asia, Middle East stuff, but nothing really substantive or that interesting, your usual takes. But yeah, very very much focused on Britain and US and how bad they are. I didn't, as I mentioned very early on, I didn't take it as close a look as on these compared to DW or France 24. I haven't checked out their YouTube channels or anything else. But a brief look for, you see Pandora Papers, that type of thing. So, but focusing on the, on the people who are aligned with the West and who came out in the papers and all that. So the Chilean case, for example, the Chilean case is one of the very few cases in the Pandora that is, the guy is a confirmed US ally and all that. So, it was quite interesting. Now, moving on to our Commonwealth. Sorry, I moved this skip up and down because of the Zoom thing is on top. Anyway,
no, I get it.
Yeah, moving on to our Commonwealth sort of English-speaking news outlets, which were easy to find, surprising. I wonder why. But yeah, first I looked at one of my least favorites, The Guardian. The Guardian, obviously, a lot of stuff about Afghanistan, A lot of stuff about coronavirus, about UK economy, about US role in climate change and all that. Run of the mill stuff, and nothing very special really stood out to me. But very I can't say it was very much 50-50 between domestic and international, but their international stuff was worst. I don't know, it's just so generic. Maybe because I just read I have read Guardian more than others, but it just read as far more generic than others. So the UK response, there was a new report out as a common inquiry. It was inquiry. So they also, like RT and Sputnik, they gave a lot of coverage to that. A lot of stuff about energy crisis going on in the UK, and interestingly, it seems that the Guardian and a lot of people on center left are coming out in favor of like big business, and it's fascinating. There was also BBC. I'll get to the BBC, so let's leave that for them. But yeah, so a lot of stuff about Afghanistan, the recent UN stuff about the women's issues in Afghanistan, and all that. Sorry, I found it interesting. They had a couple of stuff on India's coal shortage, but this came out, I think, today, if I'm not, 12th of October. Today's what? Today's 12th, right? So yeah, like the last few days though, like when Indian publications in English, they were discussing the issue heavily. No, like not, I didn't see much in Commonwealth, let's say, countries. BBC, just before going on there about talking about the BBC News website, BBC Newsnight, the great, for example, it's fascinating. They did a Tory conference coverage, and you have Boris Johnson's father now, who's a right-wing, I believe. He was a pro-EU. He was pro-EU, but he's right-wing. Tory. He's a conservative member. Now, and Nadine Zawari, I may be mispronouncing his name, the new minister for, I believe, the new education minister, if I'm not mistaken. They are talking about how businesses should invest responsibly and how they should make wise decisions, and they should invest in British labor and British workforce, and they don't have access to cheap workforce anymore, and they don't have access to these workforce that they can exploit anymore. And then you have Guardian and stuff advocating, like, say, not advocating, but writing articles that government is allowing big businesses in energy to fail. Let them fail, just restructure them, take them over, and keep them, by the way. Don't sell them off like the Royal Bank of. Anyway, I'm just going on a rant now. But but it's a fascinating shift in the news coverage and political scene in the UK. I mean, you can see it in other things as well. But a lot of things about, again, COVID response, Afghanistan, interpret a lot of real life stories about women issues and interpreters, people who worked with the US and UK governments. Their international stuff, very mundane, very usual. That's why I think if you just basically follow BBC, you could, like on international aspect, you could just ignore all the other ones, because they are all the same. Like, North Korea said that you should not heat up the tensions, and then US said, no, you shouldn't heat up the tensions. And then everybody said you shouldn't heat up the tensions. That's the takeaway. BBC Australia had a lot of stuff about climate change, especially because the Australian Prime Minister is not going to the summit. So a lot of people, including the royal family, Prince of Wales, Charles, urging the Prime Minister of Australia to attend the summit. Some stuff about China floods and energy crisis across the world. And as you see, they connected here to the climate change, which I quite liked, because I think all these are pretty much due to two factors, which we always, I don't want to start a debate right now, but climate change and in my view, overpopulation or over consumption, however you want to categorize that. Now, also, as I mentioned, your run-of-the-mill sort of international stories about tensions and the COVID UK early response, worst public health failure ever, NP say. That's the, again, 15 minutes ago. That's in relation to the common inquiry I talked about earlier. Canada, moving on to global news. Global news, I don't know if they're funded by the Canadian government. I assume there is a BBC Canada as well. Is that true?
Yeah, there's CBC and this, yeah. So CBC is just
CBC?
modeled like BBC. CBC,
Should have
Canadian
told me that in
Broadcasting Corporation. But global news, good question. I don't know if global news is private or not. Yeah, that I don't know.
All right. Yeah, I should have. Yeah. I did. Yeah, I could have just literally had a 2-minute discussion with you, but I.
But no way.
That's
yeah.
So just to keep that in mind, so you know the level of depth of research. So yeah, but global news, they are Canadian news outlets, I believe, and they very much focused on again Canadian issues, even like their, for example, international issue that was, for example, China-Canadian relations. As you see, following the release of Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, Canada could get tougher on China, experts say. So, you know, it's still very much connected to domestic issues. So mostly, you know, domestic stuff, some stuff about, again, Afghanistan and, you know, especially, you know, human stories, as they call them, or whatever, interpreters, people who real life stories rather than, let's say, you know, Taliban met with this guy or that guy or that type of thing.
And they're private, by the way, I just checked.
Private? All right.
Yeah, private only, yeah.
I found they had also a lot of stuff on IMF and World Bank and stuff, really, like France 24. I found them to be somewhat looking at international institutions and all that. And what I found surprising was that very much focused on Canada itself, not so much Canada and US. I thought there would be a bit more North American newsy type thing. It was very Canada type thing. So, you know, that was an interesting look. But I will, so CBS is the equivalent of a BBC for Canada, huh?
CBC.
Is that CBC? CBS is the American one. Obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you do take away something from anything from we do on a Spar&Brawl, is that please don't read Guardian. I'll do it for you for free, and I'll come and tell you. Just don't. I want their traffic to go down. I want, yeah. So just, yeah. That's sorry. I'm just settling personal scores now.
Yeah, I can see that. But okay, nice, good stuff. So that's it. I think we did a good tour of the world, no?
Yes, I believe we started from the US and now we are just at the northern borders of the US to finish off. And please, let us know what you think of this type of programming and format, because we are just experimenting with this. We might go focus on issues, focus on specific outlets. We don't know. We're just gonna go with the flow, with the structure.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff. Brilliant. So please like and subscribe and leave your comments, questions, criticisms, and all that down below. I will make sure to get to them. If not, thank you for watching and we'll see you in our next video. Thank you.